Hey guys, how's it going? So today I was watching a video, and in the video they started poking fun at just how um just bad Superman movies tend to be. And you know, a lot of flack got thrown towards Superman versus Batman. A whole lot of shade got thrown its way. Some of it has merit, but honestly, I think for the most part it's a really good movie. But I think one of the one scenes that we all kind of just jumped on the bandwagon with and, just mutually enjoyed the ridiculousness of was one particular scene where, Superman's all like Martha, and then Batman's like Martha, and then Superman's like Martha, and then I was like Steve. But it was just such a ridiculous scene. And and at first glance, you look at it and you're like, it doesn't make sense. It's the stupidest thing ever. But then I stopped and I thought, is it really that stupid? So let's break it down. All right. Now, first and foremost, we've got to understand Batman as he is in this movie. We're not looking at outside sources, so to speak. We're not looking through his comic books. We're looking at how he's portrayed in this movie and what time period it takes place in. Because the biggest thing we need to remember here is that this is essentially a Batman action. The whole scene with Martha and how ridiculous the whole scene with Martha and how ridiculous all that is. So the most important thing that we can do right now is to remember exactly how things play up to that event. Okay, first of all, this is older Batman. And as you see through the movie, he's kind of to that point to where he's starting to kind of come apart at the seams. You see him take lives and you see him act just heavily out of fear and anxiety. Um, and Batman has always been equal parts willpower and equal parts fear. And that's literally, they actually addressed that in the comics at one point, at a couple different points, because at two different instances, he has an opportunity to be a Green Lantern user, and the ring rejects him because he has too much fear in his heart. But on the flip side, he gets a chance to wield a yellow ring, and it tells him he has too much willpower in his heart. So, like I said, equal parts willpower to equal parts, fear. The man is driven as much by his own determination as he is his own fear. So, and you start to see his actions become more rash because you also got to understand this is old Batman. This is older. Like, he's aged. He's been doing this for a long time. Like, you gotta think how many times he's been shot, how many times he's been stabbed, how many times he's been run over, how many times he's been crushed by something. Like, and it's wearing down on him. And your body can't come back after a while. He's not a superhero, physically speaking. So his body is breaking down on him. And, he's coming up with the science and the gear to upgrade, but he's reaching a point to where it's kind of like an old animal that's had to fight its whole life. It gets paranoid and scared in its old age because it still thinks it has to fight all the time. And it doesn't see any other way of living. And Batman's really running into that. To where, for one, Batman has no trust. He has zilch for trust. Like, he has awful about trust. Like, I mean, he tries to, you see him periodically confide his Robins to the most part, but even then he treats them like subordinates. He doesn't truly trust them. Um, so Batman has a really big trust issue, which means that he really can't pass the mantle on, and Gotham is messed up. It's as bad as it was when he got there. Or I mean, I guess you look at it how you will, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Gotham. It is a sick city. And here he is, he's reaching the end of his life, and he's so afraid. Like, he's afraid, he's tired, he's acting recklessly. He's kind of forced to kill people because he's slowing down. He can't afford to sit there and go through the extra measures to make sure that no one dies. If a man pulls a gun on him, he might have to resort to, like, killing that person. He's gotten to that point in his life, and it's not great, but it is what it is. And that goes against everything that Batman stands for, or what he believed in, or his ethos. Like, his ethos is literally the entire struggle behind, like, him and the Joker and their dynamic back and forth through the years. And it's literally the entire premise behind the Killing Joke, which is really, like, Well, besides the part where the Joker tries to prove that anybody can go crazy, the main part for Batman is the struggle to where, like, you know, he doesn't want to kill the Joker, but he sees how not killing the Joker is affecting things. But at the same time, like, that was his hard line that he always drew. Like, he always made that hard line. So now he's struggling because he's all of a sudden he's changed, and he's so jaded, and he's been doing it for so long, he's acting recklessly to the point to where he's branding criminals who then die in jail because of it. And he had to have known when he did it what he was doing. He's self-destructing, and because he's a person that does not ask for help, he is creating these scenarios because he's desperate and he's afraid. And then along comes Superman. This big, huge, you know, almost godlike figure with, like, unimaginable power and strength and just a frightening force. And, at first he's the good guy, but then Batman, of course, Batman being fearful as always, he of course is going to immediately take that to a bad place, and he says, well, what happens when he stops being a good guy? And then you see him make a rash judgment call. Like, he doesn't act like Batman typically does. He's panicking, and he's reaching a point in his life and he's afraid and he needs to do something. And Superman scares the living crap out of him. And the idea of that scares him to the point to where he gets a little bit of knowledge that makes him think that Superman is compromised on some level, and without looking into it or like double checking all of his information, which is always been Batman's MO, to understand a situation in its entirety. But you kind of see him just immediately rush out and try to start planning what he's going to do to take down Superman. So he's already acting rashly, he's afraid, he's not his typical self. And to a certain extent, it can kind of be seen in his setup. In the end, he does enough measures that he can win. But if Batman had prepped more and been a little more calm, you best know the beginning of that fight would have gone much differently, a lot quicker. But still, besides the point, he handles things as best he can, but then he reaches a point to where he's about to kill Superman. Now, there's a big difference between, in the heat of the moment when there's a bunch of chaos and gunfire going on and people are dying. There's something completely different from that to a man is on his back, pleading for his life, and you're about to skewer him with a spear. Like, that is a really intense experience. And it is understandable that in that moment, when you've been so afraid and you're panicking and you're breaking your own, like, everything that makes you're failing about, and like you're desperate. And then all of a sudden, the man who's on the ground that you're about to kill face to face says the name of your mom. And you know how Batman is with his parents. Like, that moment in itself, right there, is a brain snapper. Like, he's reaching a crossroads in his life. He's already made mistakes, but this is like, he's about to kill Superman. And it's understandable, in my opinion, how, after everything plays out like that he stopped and he said, like, what? Like, why are you saying that name? It might not be a rare name or whatever, but it's enough to make him stop. Now, do I think that the logical transition that happened after that made a whole lot of sense with, like, the sudden change in attitude completely? Not so much, but I also think I think that might have been the first time that he ever actually looked at Superman as a person and not as this borderline godlike figure with all these powers. It might not have ever occurred to him that this dude is just a regular dude with, parents and friends and family and people that he cares about and a life. People don't realize that the bad is just a lot of times it's really easy for people to forget Batman is not this faceless bat figure who fights crime 24/7. It's a dude who has a life and a butler and a small family, very messed up, but a family nonetheless. And you know, it's really easy to forget that. And I think that maybe that's really what swayed him as hard as it did, was realizing for the first time that Superman was also just a man. All right. Well, this is the first video of this kind that I've done. I hope that somebody finds it interesting. I had fun thinking about it. I'll try to come up with a few more of these at some point. Hopefully, somebody likes them and wants to hear more of it. Like, share, subscribe, do the whole 9 yards. All right. Y'all have a great day.